Dr. Jabanka, yeah, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm getting you, Chair. So we are almost.
John, young Madega.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me too?
Yeah. I can hear you, but you're breaking.
I'm breaking, right?
Yeah, but Leggy, looks like you are coming quite clear and nice now.
Okay, so I'm just sharing my screen to play the song, and we're gonna start straight away from.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Fellow Gambians and everyone that is watching or listening to this very program, we are back again, the CORONATA series that is here to discuss on coronavirus disease. I just want to take a recap to today was supposed to be a day we're going to have, we used to have Mandinka, Wolof, and Harpular in the presentations. However, we have just concluded 4 big episodes of this series. And today we're going to have a recap in English of all the 4 different episodes that we have discussed. And I'm going to have with me Dr. Chernoba, who is going to do a brief summary of the first 2 episodes. And the first 2 episodes we had discussed what coronavirus disease is as an overview. And then we also discussed, of course, the face mask. What is a face mask? How do you use it? What are the importance of using it and all that? And then in the 3rd episode, we actually discussed social distancing. Okay, we discussed social distancing and hand washing. And in the 4th episode, which we have just concluded yesterday, we had discussed misconceptions of coronavirus disease. And so as we conclude these 4 episodes, we thought it wise to just recap them, but this time around in English language. As you know, this program is mostly dedicated to local languages. And so we want to take some time to summarize most of the things that we have discussed with all our audience in the English language. And also to inform you that next weekend, we are starting a new series. Not a new series, but a new episode, which is going to be episode 5. So episode 5 is coronavirus and religion. And we are very much thrilled to be joined by the Supreme Islamic Council and also the Gambia Christian Council, who would come discuss with us on coronavirus disease and religion, COVID-19 and religion. So the first part of that series will be handled by the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, and they will start their presentations hopefully on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the upper week will be done by the Gambia Christian Council. Their presentations also will follow a similar manner. So we are expecting exciting moments to come in the future, and so you just stay tuned, and we are very happy to have you over here. I also want to take this opportunity to thank in a very, very hearty way all those who in one way or the other have participated in the Coronata series from its inception, from the whole concept to its, let's say, materialization, and all those who have participated in presentations. We can't thank you enough. People have presented, they've taken quite a lot of great amount of time in their presentations, and they've come up here to be able to present. We know it's really not very easy. Most of us who are more of faith presenting in English, now having to present in our own languages, it sometimes becomes a very big challenge and a very big struggle. But again, everybody has given his best shot. And to all of you over there that take your time, out of your busy schedule to listen to what we are saying, most importantly, to those of you out there who have had any good information and have put that into practice, and I am sure saving one life is as important as saving many. So we just want to say thank you. So all the presenters, I want to say a big thank you to all of you. We've not yet finished. We kind of having a hibernation period where we will give everything to the religious people, and hopefully from there we will also go to the legal people before we finally come back to the doctors again. We will continue with it. Corona is here and it's going to be with us for a while, and as long as it stays, this series will be here to help us and give us more ideas and to give us more ways to be able to fight it. Having said that, I have with me Dr. Chernoba. He's here with us, and Dr. Chernoba will get this first 20 minutes as he goes through a summary of all the, a whole overview of what coronavirus disease is. Again, we will continue to say repetition is the mother of learning, and we will continue to repeat these things over and over again. And the more we say it, we hope it will land on good ears, and those ears will implement some of the things that we have said, and that would be great. So Dr. Chernoba, if you are on, please, you can kindly come on. Yep. Are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, better than any time I've ever had you.
All right, so I have to make a disclaimer. I am not in the house right now. I am, I had some other prior commitments for the day. And then, of course, as we were talking on the phone, then, this thing came up to sort of do the summary. So I would be maybe, people will hear a little bit of noise in the background, but I would apologize in advance. That is not the intent to not, do this presentation in a much better sort of forum. But, it's like we try to give out the best we can at any given time, and as clinicians, we adjust to situations as they arrive, at us. So I would make that disclaimer and apologize in advance to anybody that may be listening to us. So, and thank you, Dr. Java. I couldn't thank you enough. Since I've been here, we've been talking, and this gesture and initiative, there was nothing that could have been more important, that we could do for our country. And I think the commitment that you have, in the medical field, in helping, improve the health outcomes of this nation, you know, I cannot overemphasize how important, you know, your contribution has been and will continue to be, you know, to make our nation a better nation, and to give our health system the best we can. So I want to say thank you very much for all the efforts you have been kind of putting towards this initiative. And so, as Dr. Jabang has already mentioned, you know, today's presentation is going to be basically a summary of what we've been talking about all this, you know, while for the past 4 weeks. Every week we've been coming out and talking about coronavirus and what corona is and all the things around corona and how we can help mitigate, you know, the spread and the pandemic, you know, in the part of the Gambia. So today I will be giving a summary of our first and second episode, which was primarily the episode 1 was just to give an overview of what corona was or what corona is, and then the second episode was to talk about, you know, the face mask in general. So I will start by talking about giving an overview of what corona is, and then by first, you know, discussing the definition of corona. You know, briefly, corona has been identified, you know, like a flu-like symptoms that just presents, you know, when somebody is infected with the virus, and then it's pre-contagious. It can basically affect every part of your body. You know, if you have coronavirus, it can affect you. It can affect every organ system that you have. Primarily, it is a contagious respiratory illness, you know, and that usually affects the lungs. And but again, like I said, it can affect other parts of your body as well. And you know, it's caused by the COVID-19, the coronavirus, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, CO2, is which was discovered in 2009, is where we derived the name COVID-19. And other people will call it coronavirus, and some people will call it COVID-19, right? And then from a very brief etiology, the virus first started in Wuhan, which is in southern China, and then it started spreading around the world. And for that makes it, from a public health standpoint, it became a pandemic. And then it's, you know, we know one of the challenges we have with the coronavirus is the difficulties in identifying or differentiating it between, you know, the influenza-like symptoms, you know. And so because they share so many common symptomology, that sometimes you may even have an acute respiratory illness that may be confused with coronavirus. And but what's been happening over the years or over the months since this virus started spreading around in the country or around the world, we've been seeing the numbers going up and down, You know, lately, what they call the epidemiological curve has been flattening in some countries, you know, and in some countries it hasn't been in some countries. So basically, it is so dynamic. You know, the flattening of that epidemiological curve has been dynamic, and so it has been for Gambia as well. And so in every presentation that we do, what we will normally do is we will give an epidemiological data of the Gambia and Senegal and the global perspective. Now, right now, and globally, this virus has become so overwhelming in terms of numbers of people who have gotten the virus and people who have died from the virus, and the people who have been also recovered has also been significant. And that's kind of worthy to mention, because as much as we are getting the virus, but there are a significant number of people who are also having some recoveries or gaining some recoveries from the virus. Now, the signs and symptoms of this virus has primarily been, you know, when you have an elevated temperature, you know, dry cough, you know, generalized body pain or loss of taste, or even, a smell, and diarrhea or vomiting, all other symptoms. But those have been the most basic signs that, when they can come in different ways. They can come as mild, they can come as moderate, and they can come as severe. So basically, how you treat it is directly dependent on how it presents to you. Severe symptoms, sometimes it's kind of hard to even tell. That's why some people will have coronavirus and they will not be presenting any symptoms. Basically, they become asymptomatic. In the medical field, that's what we call people who basically would have an illness and they would present with no symptoms. That doesn't necessarily mean the people who have the virus and don't show symptoms does not have the illness. All right. And so that's critical to understand. Basically, the people that have presented with the virus that had gotten health attention is people who have either the severe symptoms or people who are in critical conditions where they would require emergency medical attention, or where they will require an intensive care attentions most of the time when they are intubated or they are hospitalized in an intensive care unit. Now, one of the problems with the coronavirus is the transmission. All right. Now, we know there have been so much discussion and conversation about the mode of transmission, but primarily this transmission of this virus has fundamentally been all concluded to be a droplet, like a droplet mode of transmission, and basically it's not, when it just flies out in the air like that. It is when somebody has a virus and then and they speak, or they sneeze, or they even talk or sing, what happens, the content of that virus can come out in the form of droplets, and they can be transmitted from one person to another. And that's another problem that, we've kind of confusion that's been going around the world, or even, among communities, about how this virus is transmitted. We can have what you call a direct transmission or indirect transmission, but primarily droplet, a transmission is the fundamental mode of transmission of the coronavirus, and that is it's in you can get it directly, you can get it indirectly. And in the Gambia, there have been some interventions that have been, put up by the government, by the health community, to help mitigate the spread of this virus. And so many things have been done at national level, at administrative, like an executive presidential administrative level, at the healthcare setting level, and all different levels, primarily just to help prevent the spread of this virus. And one of the things that we've been advocating and pushing for is the use of masks, the proper hand washing, and making sure that you are cleaning your hands and keeping a good hand hygiene, and wearing a mask at all times is one way to help mitigate the spread of this virus. And the other thing is, when people do feel sick, when people feel like they are sick and they have the virus, one of the things that we've been advocating for is to have the individuals stay at home and sort of self-quarantine and try to get help as soon as possible. Now, besides just the proper hand hygiene and the hand cleansing and hand washing, the other ways that we felt could be helpful, because around the world, all countries that have shown a little bit of restraint and control over the spread of this virus have been places that have actually put strong measures in making sure some of these proactive measures like hand washing, face masks, and social distancing has been enacted and is in full force, and people are respecting those principles and laws. So, and in our second episode, we talked about the face mask. The face mask, basically, what happens, because we know when you wear the mask, whether it is a surgical mask or whether it is a cloth mask, you can help prevent the spread of this virus from you to another person. Because we do know from an infectious disease standpoint, all right, people can transmit diseases directly or indirectly. We know that, right? And so because you can get it from a surface or an object to a person, or you can be exposed to an infected person. Or what can also happen is you can get it from one person to another by airborne or even sexual activity or from animals to people. So there are so many ways from an infectious standpoint how this virus can get from one person or from one place to another. So, and then we're discussing about the face mask. We sort of put emphasis on the idea that if you wear a face mask, you are more than likely at least to help restrain the spread of that virus within yourself and not going into to another person. And part of it is because we know that this virus will spread through the respiratory secretions. If you cough out your respiratory product. If you sneeze, the same thing. Even when you talk close to another person. So this virus has the ability to be carried in that sputum or in that saliva that comes out of your nasal cavity or even from that mouth, to go about 6 feet, which is about a meter. And so that is the reason why it's important for people to be wearing face masks. And because when you cough, when you sneeze, when you sing, and you're around another person, what happens? Then the chances of that person getting, that sneeze or that cough or that talk, whatever is coming out of you, getting to them is very highly likely. And so that's why we emphasize, please and please and please, wearing masks. And what's a face mask? There are several types of masks, but typically, it's a personal protective equipment. It's a personal protective, gear, mostly used within the healthcare system. But in the cases of this, we also can wear a mask. And there are different types of masks, right? And we do know the face mask has, people in the Gambia here, as I see, is wearing the mask most of the time very wrongly. For instance, people will only cover their mouth and not cover their nose, or people will just have the mask hanging on their ear, or people would wear the mask if they are approaching the police station, or some sort of a thing like that. And that's an improper way of using the mask. In order for us to help mitigate the spread of this disease or this illness or this virus, if I may use that term, is we have to use the mask appropriately, all right? Because it is supposed to cover from the bridge of the nose, all right, to the chin. That's how far it is supposed to cover, right? It needs to stay in place every time that you are around other people, And then sometimes it can be very irritating, we know that. And then people who have some compromised health issues can have hard time and difficulty using or wearing the mask. That's understandable because there are some contraindications for using the mask. But primarily, everyone needs to use the mask appropriately, all right? And then one of the things that I see is people wearing a mask and they're touching their face with the mask all the time. That's not a proper way of using the mask, all right? And we know masks are mostly worn by health professionals, but in times of pandemic like these, the public, the community members can also wear the mask. It is meant to help catch an infectious threat that may come from a person to the outside. So when you wear a mask, you are just keeping that infection within you and not outside. And it's important to understand not all the masks that will help prevent you from getting the infection. Even, like for example, a surgical mask or even a cloth mask, those things will not necessarily prevent you from getting an infection. However, it can prevent you from passing the infection to another person. So the N95 respirator usually is the most effective, but even with that, it has to be appropriately worn. You have to wear it in a way that it is meant to be worn in order to prevent you from catching the virus when somebody has it and they are standing next to you, especially they are within 6 feet. All right. So we have the medical masks. We have the respiratory face mask. We have the cloth mask. We are going to talk about the cloth mask because in Gambia, that is what is more common. The cloth mask is everywhere, it's cheap, it's affordable, and you can at least prevent yourself from getting that infection out of you to another person. So that's why we encourage for the use of the cloth mask. All right. It is the most commonly used in the Gambia. So let's use it. It has also been primarily recommended, in areas where the virus has been shown to be increasing every day in terms of the number of confirmed cases. So it has evidence that it can help, when we use the face mask, it can help restrain, at least keep that virus from under control. So it is the most affordable preventative measure that we currently have and we can use. All right. And the nice thing about it is you can wash it and reuse it again. And instead of having to use it over and over and over and throw it away, like in the case of a surgical mask, you can use the cloth mask. That's why I'm trying to put emphasis on the cloth mask. All right. And the good thing is literally every tailor in the Gambia can make one. So you can just go get one and it's cheap, it's affordable. And that's the thing that, we have to put in perspective and understand that when we're using the mask, it can help prevent at least from passing the virus from within ourselves to other people. There are some cautions that you need to be aware of while you're using a mask. It's important to wear it every time that we're in the public. Important. Every time we're in the public, please wear a face mask. All right. And then what happened is, when you wear a mask, you have the ability to actually prevent the illness or this virus being spread from you to the other public or to other people outside in the community. All right. And you must use it appropriately. You must cover your face by ensuring that your nose and your mouth is covered and it is tightly fitted underneath your chin. Now, when people are below the age of 2, it is not recommended. All right. There have been some evidence that, people say that when you're young, when you're 2 years old or less, you may not have virus. You may not have the coronavirus, but that's not necessarily true. There has been some pediatric studies involving pediatric population that have shown actually the virus spreading among that population as well. And that's important. But at least for now, the recommendation is for people who have between the ages of 2 and above to wear it whenever they are outside of their own family unit. All right. If you are outside of your own family, household members, please wear a mask to help prevent or mitigate the spread of this virus. All right. But when you have an illness that causes you to have difficulty breathing, it's a contraindication. You don't necessarily have to wear a mask. Then you just have to use quarantine measures for the most part. Okay, that's one. Or if you are disabled, or if you are at home and unconscious, those are all contraindications for not using the mask. All right. And it is not recommended to be used for children, especially who are young, especially infants. All right. And the important thing is the implication for not wearing the mask is much greater than if you wore the mask. And that's what's important, all right? Because it can reduce the risk of catching the disease. It can also reduce the risk of you passing the virus from one person to another, all right? And so every time when we do this presentation, we usually give a summary. And right now, what I want to talk about is to say, please, every Gambian should make the endeavor and effort to make sure that they are doing a proper hand washing. That should last for about 20 seconds. Please, every Gambian, please do that. And then keep a social distance, all right? Keep from other people who are not within your household members, about 6 feet apart. Wear a mask at all times to protect yourself and other people, all right? And use it by covering your mouth and your face, your mouth and your nose, and making sure that it is covering the entire part of your, from the bridge of your nose to the chin area. And then avoid crowded places. When you feel sick, please try to isolate yourself, quarantine yourself. And if you feel sick, if you are not feeling good, try to get some help. Try to get help and stay at home if you're not feeling very well. So, and I know, we don't have a whole lot of time, and I just wanted to make sure that we give a recap of episode 1 and episode 2, and then and thank you for listening. And then we hope that everyone is going to contribute to making sure that we are helping to contribute in mitigating and in restraining this virus within the community and within all, people within the Gambian nation. And so for that, on that note, I like to say thank you for listening. And then I will hand over the floor or the presentation to Dr. Jabang to continue on and giving a summary of episode 3 and episode 4. Dr. Jabang.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chernova. It's been a marathon presentation, right? Trying to summarize.
I know, right?
Two episodes, within a very short period of time. But I think that's okay for our English speakers. And thank you so much, Dr. Chernova. And just for the record,
thank you for letting me. Let me bring your chair back.
Right, the whole content of these 4 presentations that we have developed have actually been developed by Dr. Chernova, and he really did quite well. I'm even afraid sometimes that he's here on holiday, that I've not just consumed all his holiday into, what is actually not a holiday. But anyway, he's a fuller boy and he's strong. All right. So we're going to continue exactly on the same series, and today we're going to summarize. Say episode 3 and also episode 4. So Dr. Jallo just summarized for us episode 1 and episode 2, and I'm going to do the summaries for episode 3 and then episode 4. So just to start by episode 3, we talked about hand washing and social distancing, and what we said basically as an introduction, and that's where Dr. Ba stopped, and I'll just start from there. When we discussed the issue of hand washing and social distancing, sometimes you meet people who would ask you, why do we need to wash our hands, or why do I need to social distance? Now, this is the thing. We had discussed by saying that when we talk about disease processes, basically there are 2 types. We talk about diseases that we call communicable diseases. That is to say, they are diseases that you can pass from one person to another person. And we also talked about other diseases that are non-communicable diseases. These are diseases that you cannot pass from one person to another person. Amongst them, you have hypertension. So if somebody is hypertensive, you can sleep with him, you can touch him, you can kiss him, you can do anything that you want to do. You can do everything. He can't transfer that disease to you. And that is basic, we know. But then we talked about those former disease processes that are infectious diseases or communicable diseases. These are diseases that are characterized by the presence of an infectious organism. And that infectious organism comes in various forms. It could be a virus, it could be a bacteria, it could be a fungus, it could be any other thing that the scientific people or the medical people would call. And when you have infectious disease, so let's say, for instance, we talk about malaria. Malaria, we know in the Gambia, in fact, currently we are in the malaria season, all right? We know that for one to have malaria, you must be bitten by a mosquito. And that is just, you must be bitten by a mosquito. And for you to prevent yourself from having malaria, all you need to do on the face of this earth is just to prevent the bite of a mosquito. And once you succeed in preventing the bite of a mosquito, then you are sure that you wouldn't have malaria. The same thing happens also when it comes to COVID. We have said that COVID is a respiratory illness, okay? That means, like what Dr. Bass said earlier on, that somebody basically has to have it and cough it out, sneeze it out, talk it out, and that droplet come in contact with you, and you also either sneeze it in or it get into your eyes or anything, then that is the way you can have COVID. So we were saying that then one of the ways of preventing COVID is hand washing and social distancing. Where do hand washing come to play? Now, we understood now in an old medical story that we know, We knew that in those days, that is prior to the antibiotics being available, so many people died from infections. So many people died from infections in the world before the antibiotics came into being. Now, there was a Hungarian doctor who made a change, who made a dynamic shift. And what was this change? Then you realize that, the doctors were very, 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 I would call it, they're multidisciplinary. Like one doctor does almost everything that comes to him. So the doctors do the autopsies, the doctors come around to do the deliveries, the doctors come to do, it's not the same way you have it today that you say, oh, okay, no, I am just an orthopedic surgeon, or I am just a nephrologist, or I am a cardiologist, or you don't have those. So the single person that is going to be the doctor, he does most of the things. And they realize at that time the infection rate was high. And this doctor in Hungary just realized one little thing, and that's very important. They realized that, look, because those days, when they deliver one woman, they move to another woman again and deliver the woman, and move to another woman again and deliver the woman. This is the same person who is doing the same thing over and over again. So if one of the women would catch an infection, then that infection would naturally be transferred by the doctor himself from one woman to another, to another, to another, to another. And that has been going on. And then came this doctor who now started to say, look, you know what? When we finish with one woman, let's wash our hands. So when they finish with one woman, they wash their hands and then move to the other woman. And then they realize that the rate of infection has dropped tremendously. And then they came to realize that, look, hand washing does a lot in reducing infection. So since that time, hand washing had been something that we so much talk about in the medical profession. So much so that when you go to the developed world, you enter into the hospital, you find it everywhere. Sanitizers are found everywhere. Because people know that even as you move from one patient to another patient, you have to sanitize your hands. So that's what you do. In fact, there's a very, I'm not too sure if I can remember that statement, but there's a very interesting statement that says that everything we as health people, everything that we do to patients, we harm them. There is only one thing that we do to patients that we don't harm them. That is to say, we wash and sanitize our hands before we touch a patient. That is the only thing that we do to patients that we don't harm them. So as important as that statement may be, it just goes on to emphasize the need for hand washing. Now, we know that we live in a society, especially in the Gambia, where when we meet people, we greet them by our hands. Where when we cough, most of the times, knowingly or unknowingly, we basically cough on our palms. Where when we deal with money, we have to hold money on our hands. Where when we are driving, it is our hands. Whatsoever we are doing is our hands. That is how util the hand is. The hand is so useful to the human body that is what you use for most of the activities that you're going to get yourself involved in. Exchange of monies, exchange of things. It is the hand that takes things right from another person and put it back to you. It's the same hand that takes that you use to wash yourself. It's the same hand that you use when you go to the toilet. It's the same hand that you use, everything. When you are cleaning your dishes, it's the same hand. So this hand is found to be very, 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 very useful to the human body. So much so that if we are not very careful, the usefulness may actually turn to become something that may not be very productive to the human body. And that is to say, you want to use your hand to go and do most of the things that you are doing. And when you come back, it's that same hand that you're going to use to eat with. It's that same hand you're going to use to hold your money. It's the same hand you're going to use to hold your phone. That is enough for you to pick an infection anywhere. So the whole concept of hand washing looks at things in this perspective. One, the first perspective is to say that one, the hand infections, we can actually get the infection through our hands. Okay? Somebody can cough in his mouth. He gives me a handshake. He has passed the infection to this hand. And because the hand is so util, before I know what is happening, I'm touching my face. Before I know what is happening, probably I'm also sneezing or something. And it is easy for the hand to take up that infection from whosoever it touched it to bring it to me. And in that way, I can have COVID. And because of that, we have said, or WHO have said and have recommended that hand washing is one of the most critical ways or critical measures that we can do to reduce COVID-19. That is to say, you need to be regularly washing your hands. Now, if you are in a public transport, all you need to do is you need to get a hand sanitizer. Even if you have exchange, somebody gives you money, you don't know. You just imagine, say for instance, you have $150 a single day. You know how many people that $50 would have moved from? It had gone from one guy to the shopkeeper, from the shopkeeper to another person, from that person that have gone to the taxi driver, from the taxi driver to another client, that have gone into, to the market woman, from the market woman to the businessman, from the businessman into the bank, it is out. So that single $50 have basically gone, and in the midst of a pandemic, you can tell me that in the midst of a pandemic, like we have now, you can tell me that at some point in time, we were having up to 30, up to 40% of those that were tested being positive, meaning that every 100 people that they test, 40 of them all will become positive. That was high. So at that time, you can't tell me that after a $50 have gone all around, it wouldn't have got to someone that had COVID. Of course it did. Of course it did. But the best way to help yourself, because you will have to go out, you will have to get the money, you will have to buy your whatever you need to buy, you will have to pay your transport. Once you do any kind of a transaction, if you have a hand sanitizer, just sanitize your hands. If you have an alcohol-based hand sanitizer, sanitize your hands. You kill the virus all the way. And then once in a while, wash your hands thoroughly. So in this regard, we had talked about the second point, which is how useful the hand is. And that I had mentioned earlier on, to say that we use our hand to do various things that I don't even want to come back to mention. Having mentioned the issue of the hands, we also talked about the fact that people should wash their hands properly. We had shown a video in the various presentations that we had before, and we said that the washing of the hands should last for about 20 minutes. That's what we said, last for 20 minutes. And somebody even helped us, Dr. Even helped us to say, well, it's said that you should just sing the happy birthday song, because by the time you conclude singing the happy birthday song, it would have found out that you had spent like 20 seconds washing your hands. And we had said you need to wash that very well. Get some soap. First, soak your hands, get running water, get the soap on your hands, wash it over here very well. Wash the back of the hands, the people are fine over here, absolutely very well. Wash under the nail beds also very well, all right? And then you wash your hand clean for about 20 seconds. And in that way, you will be able to prevent, even if you've got virus that have been shed on your hands, obviously you would have washed them all away and you are safe and you are good to go. It's also important that hand washing should not only be restricted to COVID-19. But COVID-19, like I would like to say, COVID-19 has come to teach us a lot of things about our own health. COVID-19 has come to remind us of some basic tenets of health that we probably have left behind. But these are important tenets that we move from one place to another. You go to enter into somebody's house, it is important to wash your hands, because you don't know what you've touched outside, and you're going to go into somebody's house, and you go into that person's house, you shake your hands with them, whatsoever you have, you would have transferred it to them, and that's the way infections spread. So the idea of now every household having to ensure and emphasize that they've got some form of water with a bleach or with any kind of detergent by their door, so that everyone that's coming in washes their hand, that idea is one that is worth doing. Not only for COVID, but COVID has come to really make us see that those are things that we should be doing. And sometimes you go again and see people just put their hands inside the water and just bring it out, and that's the way they are going. No, let us abide, let us practice these things. You see, virtues are good, and wherever there are virtues, they are meant to be practiced. So let us practice them, because virtues only bring about good things. Virtues only bring about a good health. Because today, if we are talking about washing our hands, we know that it's not only about COVID. There's so many diarrheal diseases. How do people get the diarrheal diseases? Okay, it is something that you've touched, and with your hand, you were able to put the whole thing in your mouth. That's it. So, but if you're able to wash your hand and you wash your hand well, you are going to overcome most of these things. The other thing we talked about was the social distancing. So, again, we said that most of the times the COVID virus is found within the saliva, within the respiratory secretions. And for you to be able to get these droplets out, you need to cough them out or you need to talk them out to someone that is basically close to you. And we know that most of the times when people cough, not very strong coughs, I mean, very strong coughs could go, above 1 meter. But again, no usual coughs or just people talk, they hardly would go, the droplets hardly would go beyond 1 meter. And because of that, the WHO advised, and the Ministry of Health of the Gambia also brought that whole advice to say, look, we have to socially distance or we have to physically distance, meaning that at least I should keep a distance of about 1 meter. So let's say from my outstretched arm, at least away from my outstretched arm. And in that way, if I speak, whatsoever would come out of my mouth would not be able to travel that distance to go and for you to inhale it so as to have the disease. So that social distancing was very, very important. And we have seen one thing, and that's very important, and it's worth emphasizing, that when it was practiced, when we had very good social distancing, there were a lot of people that were taking, there was quarantine that was being done, people that were suspected of having the diseases, their families were seen, they were screened, those who had it were quarantined, even those who never had it were isolated, and all that. The infections started coming down. And once you get those mitigation measures, and that is not unique to the Gambia, that is basically what happens. Once you practice the mitigation measures, things are closed down because you have numbers that are skyrocketing. Markets were closed, okay, at some point in time. Churches were closed down. Mosques were closed down, okay. Schools were closed. So many other things have closed. A lot of working places started downsizing. And we begin to see that we begin to have a control of it. But we must take great care. So the social distance is a measure to help you. Why? Because it is proven that if you are close to somebody and you stay with that person for about 15 minutes, you are not having a mask and he is not having a mask. If the person is positive, the chances of you picking up the virus is very, very, very high. And because of that, the whole idea of the social distancing came into being. Because some people sometimes really, maybe we forget, some just careless, some they don't care, they're just in the crowd and they just cough without even, any way of covering their mouth or getting a tissue paper and just, covering their mouth or just trying to cough within themselves. They would cough, openly. Sometimes people sneeze openly. Sometimes, a lot of things happen. And you are within the midst of some of these people, and you are not having your mask, and you are seated obviously in a van that is going up to Banjul. 3 of you are behind. You are already even squeezing because the place is too tight. Then the chances that if one person amongst you, let's say the one sitting in the middle, is infected, the chances that he's going to infect all of you is high. But like Dr. Ba made mention, if he puts on his mask, then you people, the chances you're going to have it is low. But the reason why we are saying you have to social distance, this is the reason. So today, as we open, and this is important, today we are opening the economy because we will have to open. We have to have balances. Yes. If you are put in a situation where it's a bad situation, you have to choose one, death of one person or death of 2 people. You will obviously choose death of one person. It's the worst scenario, but it's the best of the 2. So here we are put in a situation where, look, If our economy collapses, right? The tourism industry is not working. People's businesses have collapsed. All other things are not happening. The effect of that is being weighed alongside the effect of COVID-19. Meaning that we want to open the economy, but again, we can look at that, open the economy and open it responsibly. Opening responsibly, meaning that everybody going out put on your mask. The sad story in the Gambia is just that once we saw the numbers started going down, nobody's putting on mask anymore. Nobody's social distancing anymore. People have gone back again to their usual life. And this is what we saw happen in the UK. We saw this also happen in other countries, and we are almost seeing a second lockdown coming. So what does it mean? We just need to understand that, look, the fight is not yet over. Yes, we may be seen as winning, but again, let us say the facts are that yes, we have used these measures to beat the virus down, but again, nowadays, less people go for testing. And when less people go for testing, less people become positive. And we may live within this so-called euphoria, maybe, or this so-called, false thinking that, look, oh, we have overcome COVID, not knowing that COVID could even still be around as much as it is. I'm not saying that it's there as much as it is, but what I'm saying is that, yes, we have used the mitigation measures. Those have been responsible to put down COVID, to reduce COVID. But again, part of the reasons why the numbers are low is because there is less testing. And that is a fact. So that simply means that we have to continue our measures. Let's not relent the measures. Everybody put on your mask, wash your hands regularly, have your hand sanitizer, keep a social distance. Simple. And the last time we were discussing these things, as I conclude on this, on episode 3, we had said even that, look, if God has, or let's say, if say a certain disease has come on the face of the earth that requires millions to cure, then we would now be blaming God to say, oh, why did God did that? Because God knows we cannot afford it. But here comes an illness that really, for you to protect yourself, does not cost you money. And it becomes absolutely difficult. Having said that, I want to tailor down now within the last few minutes that I have to episode 4. Episode 4's discussion was based on misconceptions of coronavirus disease. Misconceptions of coronavirus disease. Now, when we heard of coronavirus disease all the way from China until obviously when it reached Europe, that was when we know quite a lot about it. There has been quite a lot of talks, a lot of discussions on the social media. There are those that just felt it was a hoax. Okay, it was just, any of those other stories, false stories that do not exist, Again, false stories that do not exist. Today, we are talking about death tolls due to coronavirus disease that are basically approaching, 30 million people. I'm saying total number of, not death tolls, sorry, but number of people that were infected, approaching 30 million, with the death tolls worldwide approaching 1 million people. That is almost half the population of the Gambia. We are talking about our neighboring country here, Senegal, that is registering more than 14,000 confirmed cases. And we are talking about ourselves getting to more than 3,500 confirmed cases, with up to more than 100 that have died due to COVID. It's not a hoax. There are those that believe that COVID, is a disease of the Caucasians. and not of the black people. And because of that, people believe that, well, COVID, it's not going to affect us here. But when COVID moved away from China, went to Europe, so many people of black origin have died. And we, even in the Gambia, we have known people who are Gambians who were abroad who have died of COVID. When it moved to the US, it affected everybody, regardless of your race, regardless of your color. We saw that at some point in time, we were even told the black community was hard hit. When it came to Senegal, so if you even believe that maybe the Gambia is the one that is just putting up figures, but even over here in Senegal, it has affected people. And when it comes to the Gambia, today so many people have died due to COVID. We have never seen such an amount of obituary announcements that have come on social media like that we have seen this year, since when we saw the surge and rise in COVID. Every day you would have more than 1, 2, 3 people dying, and people put it, and these are just people whose families would say they will put it on social media. How much more those many more people whom you will not even ever see on social media? The number of deaths have increased. We have never had a time that the mortuary had to be full. No, we've never had the time. No matter what, we've never had the time that the mortuary was full to the extent that they had to build, they had to get an extension. So all these are things that are facts that are helping us understand that, look, something is there, something has existed. To say that we will not have the same number of deaths that those people have in the West. Now, I mean, this is simple. It is understood. It is clear. It's not rocket science. Why? Because we know when you look at the population, what we call the population pyramid in Africa, the population pyramid, as you go up, it narrows. But in the West, the population pyramid, as you go up, it enlarges. That is to say that when you come to Africa, most of the people, the population is made up of the young, active people. That does not mean that we don't have the old among us. We do, we have. And unfortunately, COVID has come in the Gambia and it has devastated some of the key people in our society. But we know that most of the population is the young, the able-bodied. And because of that, it becomes natural, technically clear, that the death rates that COVID may cause in the West, it may not, and those are the words, it may not cause that in Africa. Why? Because most of the people in Africa, I mean, by the time we did, our life expectancy in Africa is not up to those in the West. And as a result of that, when COVID comes, because we know that among the young able-bodied, COVID doesn't affect them as much as it does for the elderly. So in the West, the elderly population are so much, and it keeps affecting them, and it keeps affecting them in the nursing homes. And as a result, a good number of them succumb to the disease. But here too, we have to be very, very, very careful. Because as small as we are, 2 million people, okay, 3,000 people, 3,500 people, 100 people already have died. So that means we need to help ourselves to prevent it so that we do not have the infections. So it is not a hoax, like we said. It's not also a political agenda. So in the Gambia, it's sad. Okay, maybe because I am not Barrow fan. Oh, okay, maybe I am APRC, or maybe I am UDP, or maybe I am NRP, or maybe I am this. And I just think that, okay, every other thing that has come from the ministry, it's a hoax, it's nothing, it's all political. No, it's a political. There's no political thing that is involved in it. And like we said earlier on, which government Barrow would be, the President Barrow would be out of his mind to have stopped, closed churches, closed mosques, closed schools, stop the tourism industry, stop people in business, give an amount of how many $1 million is in an economy that is already struggling. Where is he going to get the money from? Who is giving him money? Where every country is already struggling, who is going to give President Barrow money? Is it the UN that's going to give him money? For what? How much money should they give the president that to commemorate closing of all religious houses, closing of all schools, closing of all businesses, having to have a curfew? How much money should be given to a government? And that's why sometimes when you hear people make these comments, you are like, are you basically in the same wall with these people? It's not political. And as health personnel, yes, we will have our political affiliations here and there, but you can't tell me that all the health personnel in this country, from the minister, of course the minister is a political appointed person, every other person that is now working, we are all supporting President Adama Barrow, or we are all going to vote for him. No, it's not possible, impossible. There are those that support him, there are those that don't support him, there are those that are with him, there are those that are not with him. But then, in terms of work, we all work together for the health of the nation. As simple as that. And you can't tell me that an agenda will come, a political agenda will come, and the whole health, doctors, nurses, community health workers, frontliners, drivers, every other person, cleaners, would all join in that same way just to kind of propagate that. It doesn't make any sense. So the moment, the time for us to understand that COVID is not a politically motivated, COVID is not a hoax, COVID is not a disease that only affects the white people, COVID is not a cause. Some of us think it's a cause. We think it's a cause from God. God has brought it again, to punish humanity and all that. We looked at all these things and said, look, this is not COVID. In reality, COVID is a viral illness. One, it has no regard to position. The Prime Minister of UK had COVID. Our Vice President in the Gambia had COVID. The poor people in the street had COVID. Doctors have COVID. Lawyers have COVID. Engineers have COVID. Cleaners have COVID. Everybody has COVID in the social care. It has no regard to any political affiliation. You are APRC, if it attacks you, you'll have COVID. There are people that have died of COVID who are in APRC. There are people that have died of COVID in UDP. There are people that have died of COVID in PDYS. There are everywhere. People who die of COVID. It has no regard to political party. All right? It only respects those that keep the mitigation measures. And in that way, you would be able to fight it. So once again, the summaries that we like to give at the end is for everybody to know and understand that in the fight against COVID-19, we are all here together, and we all have to come together as a nation. Let's not relent, because if we relent, then it will come back again. Yes, it may not be you. You may not care because it's not you, but your carelessness, if care is not taken, would cost you a great deal. Already it has cost people a great deal. As a nation, we have lost people. We have lost people that are very, very, very dear to us. We have lost people who were great contributors, both in the health and other areas of our lives. They were great contributors. And unfortunately, we've lost them to COVID. So the onus is on all of us as a nation to play our part. Let us put on our mask. Let us social distance. Let us wash our hands. And let us also ensure that the people that are around us abide by these mitigation measures. I just hope that these times that we had in the discussion, my friend is on the traffic, and I would just like him to just say some final words if he will be available before we will close this session. And I hope this has been a great thing to us. And I just want to thank all of you who also take time to listen to what we say. We always like to say in the Gambia that talking is not easy, all right? Sometimes we go over what we say, and sometimes we find out that, oh, okay, I meant to say that, and instead of saying that, I actually said that, or okay, or sometimes there's a way you express certain things, and you would have used some words, and they say, oh no, well, in hindsight, I would have said it this way and that way and that way. We do understand that talking is not easy, and I, on behalf of all my friends, would like to say, wherever we may have had, appropriate, or where our tongue would have slipped to say things that we are not supposed to say, well, we are sorry, we are human, okay, but then the most important thing is basically to pass on a message. And sometimes we have the tendency to say, okay, maybe to emphasize certain things, all not because of anything, but because of the need, that we see, the need that we see. So once again, I just want to say thanks to all of you who've been there and who continue to watch us. I just want, before I summarize and finish everything, to give some final thoughts to Dr. Ba, whom I'm absolutely and very, very, very grateful to having. So Dr. Ba, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I couldn't express any more, and how more important it really is for everyone listening to us to help, in spreading the word about, what we can all do as people of the Gambia, and as members of the community, as just contributors to ensuring we have a better, community, a healthier community. And so that's why it is not just Dr. Ba, Dr. Jabang, Dr. Sen, or all those who have been contributing in presenting's role, or the government, or the ministers, or everyone else out there. It is a collective responsibility. It is a collective responsibility that we all have to help control, mitigate, and not help spread this misconception about COVID-19. It is a reality. It's fact that this is a disease that is spreading around the world. Evidence have shown all parts of the world that had played a deaf ear towards the importance of this illness and how to act has faced consequences that has been deadly. Countries around the world that Dr. Jawan, are you still there?
I'm there, yeah, okay. So you're back, move on.
Dr. Jabang, are you? Yeah, and yeah, I'm back. I was just gonna say, what evidence have shown around the world as we go through this pandemic is the fact that whenever you play a deaf ear, you face consequences, and the consequences have been deadly. there have been all this idea around Africa, not Africa, and actually I wouldn't say just around Africa, around the world, that, you know, this illness is a hoax, like you were talking about. And I think that was a very important topic that we had. You know, people feel this is a hoax. This is just a political agenda, some kind of a political game, and for people to, I mean, who really have time for that? You know, in all reality, who really have time for that? You know, Dr. Jabang, in my hospital where I work in the United States, you know, I was tasked in coming up with a contingency plan, in developing processes on how to help, you know, in the event we continue to have increasing deaths over COVID, because we saw what was going on around in New York State. We saw what was going around in California, in Washington. Dead bodies were being stacked in mortuaries, just like you were saying, even in the Gambia here. Mortuaries were getting busier and busier and busier. It wasn't just in Africa. It wasn't just in Gambia. And the truth is, I'm glad you mentioned about, you know, that population pyramid, because not only in Gambia do we have a young generation, we have a young population, not only in Gambia, across the African continent. You know, we have a very young population. You know, many countries in Africa, in general, we have about 60% of our populations are all young people. And what do we have? That may be a strength for us in helping in one way, but it is not to be confused with the fact that, oh yeah, because we're young people, we're not gonna get this virus and we're not gonna worry about what happens to us. It's a very low key way of thinking, you know, and you know, when you were talking about, you know, how do I call this, people, you know, like our life expectancy in many African countries or developing countries is very, very, very low, right? It's not as high as in other countries where healthcare systems are much more developed and well organized. Our systems are a little bit, you know, sort of crumbled with so many other difficulties. And that has a direct effect in life expectancies and so many other factors. But the fact that we don't even we don't even live long, all right, will explain one of the reasons why our generations are very young. So we shouldn't confuse that for the fact that, oh, because we don't get so many COVID-19 cases in Africa, so that is why it's a disease of the West. It's a disease of the white man. It's a disease that only affects, you know, the non-believers of whatever. You know what I mean? None of that is the fact. And so the idea is important, and that we all have to play that part. We have to play our little part. You know, you are playing your role, I'm doing my role, the health minister is doing their role, the president is doing his role, and the healthcare providers are doing their role.
Have we lost you there?
We have to come together as a country. We have to come together as healthcare workers to help mitigate this deadly virus, because we have seen what it has done around. We have to remember there are so many consequences after this virus. We have to deal with something else. In our reopening plans, we have to come up with other contingency plans on dealing with this virus, because after COVID is over, we have to deal with something else as well. What is the psychological effect it has? What are the after effects of this virus? What are all the other problems that may come after we are all done and over with this virus? So I say, you know, it doesn't end now. You know, Dr. Jabang, it doesn't end now. It is going to continue the fight is going to continue. The fight is not just now. Even if we start seeing the numbers going down, when that epidemiological curve starts flattening, that does not translate that we need to fold our hands and just say, oh, we are done and over with COVID-19. It is not the fact. It means we need to even brace more and try to do better. And so, in general, I think there has been a lot of effort by all parties involved. The government has been doing their part. The healthcare professional community has been doing their part. The community need to continue to do their part if we have to work as a team, because it's a chain. And if that chain got broken, the system just crumbles, everything else just spills over, and we will feel the consequences. I can continue to talk and talk and talk. I will not end, or it will not finish having to deal or talk about all the consequences of Corona. And so, in just to end my presentation and my summary of what's been discussed, is to say, please, let's come together as a nation. Let's continue to work together as a nation, and let's continue to not think that this is a hoax. Let's continue to think the opposite, and that this is a reality, and that we all have a part to play. There is no politics in this. There is no party in this. There is no age in this. This is all hands on deck. That's my conclusion. All hands on deck to help mitigate COVID-19, to have a better Gambia and a healthier Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ba. That has been well said. I mean, there are certain lessons that I just taught that we learned from COVID. And I looked at those lessons, and I think they're very unfortunate. The first thing that I see, I ask myself a simple question. You see, the day that we will have a highly lethal, contagious disease that has no regard to age, to other comorbidities, all right, that let's say, for instance, whosoever contracts it dies. What the lesson of COVID-19 has taught me is that I don't think anybody will be left in this country, because when we look at it, and that's again getting back to Dr. Ba's summary, in trying to mitigate or in trying to fight any pandemic, there are two basic responsibilities. The first is individual responsibility, and the second is a collective responsibility, under obviously a supervision of a government responsibility. But what COVID has taught me as a Gambian is that we don't have individual responsibilities. Now, maybe to say that, I mean, somebody may say, oh, well, I have done all my best. You can't say we don't have individual responsibilities. Okay. The proportion of individual responsibilities, so let me frame myself, the proportion of individual responsibilities in this country is very, very low. The rest of the masses, there is no individual responsibility. The second thing it has taught me is that the proportion of discipline, and I would like to say that again, because obviously people could misquote you or quote you and say, oh, this is what you said. Now, the proportion of discipline and respect for rule of law. You know, when we were all fighting, and I want to bring all our memories back. We've all been here. We've done, this was 2016, and everybody was fighting. Oh, the terms that we are there. We need rule of law. Okay, we need rule of law. We need the freedom of speech. We need democracy. We need that. But rule of law was that. What the question is, you as an individual, the government has come up to say, look, when you were going out, put on a mask. That's a law that's been put in place. And if you are fighting for a rule of law, so the first thing applies to you yourself as an individual to abide by that rule of law, because that's what makes you a disciplined citizen of a nation. But what I see in this nation is just that, and it's so heartbreaking, because If few do it and the majority don't do it, the essence is defeated. That's the fact. If few do it, majority don't do it, the essence is defeated. And you ask yourself several questions. Why? I remember in one of our discussions as we had rehearsals, we were asking ourselves, and somebody even proposed to say, well, I think we need to do a special research on the Gambia. Why are people so adamant just to obeying simple rules? And this goes a long way. This is how we train up dictators. Now, I'm not saying that the president has to become a dictator, but no. But this is how, because a responsible nation, you look at other nations, you take a look at South Korea. Some of them did not even have a lockdown. You take a look at Sweden. These are nations that, people, they know when a law is out to say it is this, everybody abides by that. They don't have to wait for a penalty to be attached to that law before they abide by that. But for us, a law has to be passed. 5% will abide by it. A penalty has to be attached to that law. Then that makes like 30% of the people abiding by that. And the other 40%, they just be watching. When they see the police, then they do what they're not supposed to do. And it's not helping. So for me as an individual, COVID has taught me that we are still, as a nation, and I am speaking as a Gambian, as a nation, we are still, the majority of us are still far from what is called the rule of law. We are still far from what is called citizenship. We are still far from what is called patriotism. We are still far from so many good things that we need to do as a nation. Because COVID-19 only teaches me that lesson, that the day a contagious, highly 100% fatal disease would come to the Gambia, we are all dead. Because if the measures are set, the people wouldn't obey them. And like I said, as a consequence, it only makes you and your government to now start putting laws as if we are not humans that can understand a simple communication. A simple communication as wash your hands. A simple communication as put on a mask before you go out. Should the government now come up again to say, okay, this is not happening, let police be on the road beating people like we saw it happen in other countries? So COVID for me teaches me quite a lot. But we as a nation have to be responsible. It's an individual responsibility. When you look at the CDC guidelines for reopening, very interesting guidelines. As I followed them, they divided them into 3 phases. 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And each of those phases only comes to play when certain key points are met. I can't fully remember exactly how they were detailed from 1, 2, and 3. But then you would have, even before you start implementing your phase 1, you would have had your number of admissions to your ICU reduce. You would have the number of patients getting infected reduced. So you will always have those reductions, and then you can now apply phase 1. And what is phase 1? It's not everybody going to work. No, essential services are open. Scaling down is done. People are putting on their mask and all that. And then once you are able to achieve as much, things are getting much better, you move on to phase 2. And things are getting much better, you move on to phase 3. So we are basically opening the economy. But how are we opening? Everybody is now gone back again. There is no putting on mask. There is no washing of hands. And nothing seems to be happening. Yes, we may have less mortality, but at what cost? How many people are we? 2 million people. We are all related. 100 and something people dying. Everybody you meet in the Gambia today, you speak to, would tell you he knows a relative, a friend, a brother, a sister that have died of COVID. Because remember, we are a small nation. 100 deaths from an illness is too big for us. So we have to ensure that we all work together and hold on to the mitigation measures. And we will continue to sound the bell. We will continue to raise the alarm. We will continue to sensitize. That's the best we can do. And we do hope that as people hear what we are saying, people will understand and see the passion in what we are doing. We have had in the hospital, we had lost staff in the hospital. And you should have come to the hospital and see the day that we have lost a staff to COVID. And everybody's morale is down. Even the people that has even come for people to be able to manage you, sometimes it's difficult. So that is why it has to be a very strong individual responsibility. And we all have to be responsible. It's not about sitting down and blaming God. The blame game is over. If you want to develop as a nation, yes, we're going to hold the government accountable for everything. We're going to hold the ministry accountable for what used to be accountable for. But then we hold ourselves as individuals accountable. You see people that sit down everywhere, or maybe create platforms like I do, and all they talk about the people, but they themselves, even to put on a mask from their house to go to their workplace, and not even put on their mask from their house to go to their workplace. Like it is said in the Holy Scriptures that you are complaining of a log of a peck of sand in another person's eye when you are having a log in your own eye. We cannot move on as a nation by playing the blame game. Look, every other person that wants to sit there, it's going to be business as usual. Yeah. So all we need to do, let's all work together. Let's ensure that we follow the mitigation measures. And by so doing, I am sure we will co-op all this, deadly pandemic. And I want to say thanks to all of you out there that have been listening to us, and people that have not even been listening to us, but who have been, doing their own part. The frontliners, those that are not in the front line, people that are engaged in so many other things, sensitizations and all that. Thanks, a fantastic job being done. And as a conclusion, I just want to say thanks to all of you. Once more, I want to thank most of the presenters. Dr. Ba, I can't thank you enough. I had certain presenters who have been presenting ever since we started, and they've done quite a lot, presented more than 2-3 series. They've really sacrificed, and any other person that have basically presented here, we want to say thank you. And I also want to announce to the general public that hopefully next week we are starting a new episode 5. And episode 5, we are very happy to have the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council accept our collaboration, as we will have discussions with them about COVID-19 and religion. And we are sure that will be a very, very, very fruitful discussion. So watch out for that. That is going to come on Friday, Saturday, Sunday next. And that will immediately be followed by the discussion also with the Gambia Christian Council, COVID-19 and religion. That will also come the upper Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then we will continue on to look at COVID-19 with civic responsibility, that we intend to be in collaboration with Sunyureu, that have done quite a lot in this country during this pandemic. With that said, I just want to say thank you all so much. I don't know if my guy would want to have a last word. If he doesn't, then we are closing for the day. Dr. Ba, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm still here, Dr. Jabang. So I just want to say I really don't have anything to say besides just reiterating some of the personal responsibilities need more, because we in order to help. So please, let's, as Gambians, let's not just sit and feel like it is the government's role, it is the minister's role, it is the permanent secretary or whoever in terms of the Ministry of Health responsibility to make sure this corona is out here or this corona is controlled. We all have a part to play. And the part to play that we have is what we have to play well. And that's what I just want to, again, re-emphasize, like you've mentioned, please and please and please, that we have a role and we have a responsibility in kicking corona out of Gambia. How? By all of us coming together, doing the little part we can, because we all have a little role to play. And those little roles that we have is what is going to contribute in a larger way to get this virus out of our communities, out of our hospitals, because it is going to strain our system. It is going to strain the communities. It is going to strain a lot of things. We've already seen it, we are seeing it. And so the only thing I like to say is to re-emphasize and put more pressure on everyone to rethink and start thinking and saying, hey, you know what, Digala, you know, I have a little role to play. And what is my little role? The muscle mask, suma gainer. All right. And what is my role? So I don't feel good, I must stay home, you know, all of that. And so that little role that you may say or have, you would have no idea how important it is, but it can go a long way in kicking Corona out of our country. And so with that, I say thank you all for listening. Thank you all for doing all you can to help us, you know, give a Gambia a healthier, to become a healthier nation. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ba. It's been great. It's been fantastic. And to every other person that is watching, listening to us, we've come to the end of today's discussion, which is a kind of a review in English. And for the English speakers, this for the first time, us really trying to summarize quite a lot of things in English. Otherwise, it has always been done in the local languages, and we will continue also in that. And we do hope that by the time we include the religious perspective, we will also take one day we will summarize most of these. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.